pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, show all trustees here and present.
Open the floor to Dave Bayless.
Good evening. Thanks for coming, everyone. My name is Dave Bayless. I'm a communications consultant that's working on behalf of the fire district here just to help them on the public education campaign tied to the referendum that's coming up. And I'm just going to be moderating. I've just got some very brief opening remarks, and then we'll hand it over to the trustees to provide you with some of the information you're here for. So. A lot of the work I do is in the public sector, work for police and fire departments, help them communicate effectively. And if you ask any fire chief or any police chief what their most valuable asset is, it's everyone will tell you that it's their people. That's always the priority. You can have state-of-the-art fire engines, facilities and equipment, but without a strong complement of well-trained professional firefighters and paramedics, none of that really matters. The most fundamental responsibility of any fire district or department is to be there when you need them. And frankly speaking, delivering on that very basic yet crucial responsibility is becoming more and more of a challenge because of the national labor shortage, especially in the fire service, and due to some challenges specific to Peotone, which we'll get into here this evening, obviously. But let's all just agree, of course, that the men and women working on your behalf here at the Peotone Firehouse are doing outstanding work. They bring their best every day to respond when you need them most, and that's all we can really ask of them. We're proud to have each one of them supporting the residents in our community. The quality of the personnel we have here in Peotone isn't a problem at all. It's the quantity of skilled men and women who are available to help us deliver on our mission. It's our hope that you walk away from tonight's meeting with a better understanding of the challenge the district faces every day. So our goals tonight, we have 3 or 4 of them here. One is to provide you with factual information about the staffing crisis currently taking place at the Peotone Fire Protection District. Give you a brief overview of how we arrived at this point. Discuss what a potential consolidation with the Manhattan Fire Protection District can deliver in terms of bolstering our ability to address the staffing crisis and to respond when you need them most. And of course, we're here to answer all of your questions. So here's how tonight will work. As soon as I'm done talking, I'm going to ask the trustees to introduce themselves, talk a little bit about their experience with the fire service here in town. Then we'll run through 2 brief presentations. One is primarily on the operational side and on the consolidation side, and then we'll have a second brief presentation talking about the financial viability of what a consolidation would be like. Then we'll open up the floor to your questions. We'll answer all your questions to the best of our ability. If we don't have an answer tonight, we'll be certain to get back to you with the answers that you're seeking. And also, tonight is not an end, but just part of the ongoing conversations taking place about how we can ensure that we're delivering on our commitment to you to be there when you need us most. We have been sharing more information with you about this issue. We've been sending out mailers, we've been posting a lot of information online, we've been reaching out to the press and asking them to take an interest in this, and we're hosting our second town hall here as well. This will be pretty much identical to the first town hall, so if you missed that one, you needn't worry because you're going to get everything you need here tonight. And that's pretty much it. So we've worked very hard to provide this information in a very simple format. That said, if there's anything you need clarified or explained, we're happy to do just that, so don't be shy. No questions are bad questions whatsoever. And really, the concept of a consolidation here is, it's not a new or novel concept. You've seen other fire districts are consolidating, you've seen school districts consolidating as well. And this proposed consolidation has received the support from the Illinois Fire Chiefs Association and our local mutual aid district. So it's clear that the fire service in general is looking at this consolidation as kind of a template for how others can go, but also they're very supportive of the entire idea. It's really not a matter of what Peotone gets or what Manhattan gets out of this, it's gonna be, if the voters approve a consolidation, it'll be one district serving the entire district, both communities. And you'll have one board of trustees, and you'll have one set of command staff. So with that, why don't we just introduce the trustees, and then we'll kick off the presentation. So, Randy, why don't we start on your end?
I'm Randy Murray. I started with the fire district back in 1975. I've been a fireman and trustee since then, and very proud of our department. It was a full-blown, part-time or volunteer department that slowly, gradually turned over to part-time and volunteer, and now we are full-time, part-time, other people's employees. So that's a little bit about that.
Mike Shivers, I've lived in the district the better part of 37 years. I've been a firefighter EMT with this department here for, I don't know how many years it was back through the mid to late 90s, when we were kind of transitioning from full volunteer to a volunteer part-time, and I've been a trustee for about the last 14 years.
I'm Bill Osborne. I'm a lifetime resident of Peotone. I started in 1976 as a volunteer, came into the part-time, retired out of here in 2008, and I've been a trustee for almost 2 years now.
Brian Oak, lifelong resident, been on the department since '92 as a fireman, switched to the board in 2005.
I'm Claude Warner. I was born in Peotone, up in the country out there west of town where I live now. I've been on the board here for 20 years now. I'm just trying to do the best job we can to provide service, emergency service for everybody in this fire district. Which the point that needs to be made, I think, is that the fire district is still gonna be the fire district. It's just gonna expand, it's just gonna become larger and have more people to provide service for the community. So I think that's what you need to keep in mind tonight as we go through this, okay?
And also, we've got some other guests here. In the back, we've got Steve Malone, the chief. Hello. Dave Piper, deputy chief. Yep. And Bruce Boyle, deputy chief.
Morning.
And we've got Carl Addison, and Carl is, he represents the district. His firm represents the district on legal matters. And James Howard is here. He's gonna be providing the financial information. He's an accountant for the district as well. So, and just one final thing, one final point is, we're not here to tell you how to vote. How you vote, yes or no, is obviously up to you. But what we are here to do is try and provide you the best and most accurate information so you can make a very well-informed decision come election day. So, with that, I'll hand it over to Bill Osborne, and we'll run through this presentation.
Okay. We're gonna have a little presentation here. If there's something that you have a question with, raise your hand and we'll try to get it answered for you. I say we're gonna go through the whole thing, and then we'll get done with that, and James will do the financial part of it. Okay, like I said, we've got, between all of us here, we've got 74 years of fire service. All of us here are pretty much all Peotone residents. We've been here for our lives. 148 years of service to the community, and 275 years working all together serving the community. Okay, our goal is to keep 4 firefighter EMTs and 2 paramedics in the station at all time. Right now, we've been doing a fairly good job. We've been pretty much averaging 5, sometimes we get down to 4. We've had 6 quite a bit, but we are being substituted with Manhattan's people because our part-timers we don't have enough of. So when we're short on our side, Manhattan will send their people over to fill in. Okay, there's the problems we've been having. So you look at the times from June, and we brought it all the way up till September here now. Those are our current numbers. The hours that we're not staffed, hours that we can't even staff to get an engine out the door, we will get the ambulance out the door. that's mandatory. So, but you can see here the trouble we've been having, and that's just the last 4 or 5 months. This all started back 2016, 2017, we really started noticing a hard time keeping people. And the part-time, as they graduated up to full-time jobs, better pay, pensions, medical, which we don't provide. You get a flat fee here, that's it. You get no pension, you get no medical. So these guys all take full-time jobs. When they go to a full-time job and they're working a shift and they're supposed to be here, and their job there says, you gotta stay, we just lost our guy. So that guy that would have been our 6th, now we're down to 5. If that happens twice, we're down to 4. So we have to substitute somewhere. Over the last 8 years, we've had a pool of 65 to 70 part-time people to work to fill our shifts here. That's dwindled down to 23. So we don't have a pool to pull from anymore. That's basically what's happening. And that's why we're being supplemented so much with Manhattan people that are coming in to fill our shifts. You can see in 2015, we had hired 145 people. Those 145 people over the years have moved on to full-time positions, better pay, they've got families, they bought a house, you know, they gotta make good money. So when you're working part-time, I mean, it's good money, but it's nothing there to protect, no pension, no benefits, nothing. Yeah, so we're down to 23 people now. Okay, the volunteer force, like I said, that approximately 2002, pretty much volunteers in Peotone were gone. We went to, like they were saying, went to we call it a POC. It was like a paid on call. We had an incentive program. So if you made so many calls during the quarter, you got so much money from the number of calls. And depending on your rank, you could get more. So I'll use my example. I left here as battalion chief in a year, and in 1 year, and I tried to make as many calls as I could, I'd get $350. So, but we didn't do it for the money. We did, when we started, it was, we were kids. I was 18 years old. You know, it was neat to be on a fire truck. That's when you could ride a tailboard and do all their stuff. Now you can't do that. You're in clothes, a high back bucket seat, 5-point harness and everything else on you. Okay, we did create some full-time positions. As you know, if we were Peotone residents back then, we had a full-time chief, and then we went to a full-time deputy chief here. And then everybody else was all part-timers. Okay, in 2017, we considered hiring full-time people, talked about contracts, and then we talked about a referendum to raise the taxes, which now, as James will explain to you, even if we went for a referendum now to raise our taxes, we couldn't get enough money to hire people. The budget that we currently have and what it would take to hire full-time people in here, within a matter of 2.5 to 3 years, we'd be out of money. It is Peotone, we have a lot of homes, but we have no business. Everybody else around is booming. You go to Mantino, you go to Moni, you go out west of Manhattan, you know, they've got industry that's helping support them. We don't have that here. So even the truck stop coming in, now everybody says, what about the truck stop? Unfortunately, the truck stop, we're not getting anything from it. For 20 years, that's on a TIF. After 10 years, it's prorated, but we still have to provide the service. You can see during 2018, several months we had staffing shortages. 8 to 11 days in 1 month, we didn't have enough people to staff the station. We had the ambulance out of service for 40 hours. So this is the kind of things that say, this is back, we're talking back into 2017, so this is going on over 5 years. 2019, 19% of the time we were in staffing shortages. 70 days during the year. So, I mean, you stretch that over 365 days, it's not a good thing to have. In 2020, as you all know, we had the pandemic. That really stressed our department, stressed everybody's department, not just us. And the main thing that happened here is with us already being short of manpower, now we've got these full-time guys, and I'm not blaming this on anybody, it's just the way the service is working now. The full-timers come in here to work part-time. Okay, they come here, they get infected with COVID, they leave here, they go back to their full-time job. And before they know they're sick, now they've infected their people. So it was being transmitted into us and out of us. So along with our shortage, we had all these people off with COVID. So it made it even worse. So besides the fact that with the way the state had it set up, all those people that were off on COVID, we had to keep paying them, even though they weren't working. So that's where a lot of this stuff now coming in with the full-timers, their departments are saying you can't work part-time anymore within our department. Because if you go there and you get hurt there, who's gonna pay you? You're full-time with Mantino, you're part-time with Peotone. You have no benefits. We have workman's comp, but they're full-time with somebody else. So now there's this, that's when our lawyers come in. So I'm trying to figure that kind of stuff out. But the pandemic was horrible on all the departments. We did look at having, go to shift commanders, which would have kind of taken the place of our chiefs here. They would have run the shifts here at the station. We had we tested, and I forget the number we had. We started out with, I want to say 19, that dwindled down to like 15 or 11. Out of those, one was actually eligible to move on. A couple of them didn't have the certifications we were requesting. One of them didn't have some things he thought he had, didn't have them, so we had one person, so we abolished that whole. Okay, so facing the ongoing staffing crisis, we had a retiring chief, Deputy Chief Boyle was here, and I believe is a state law you have to retire at 65 years old. So he had to retire. He could not any longer stay in a command position. So we lost our chief and deputy chief. At the time, I don't think we had a battalion chief here anymore, did we? So we just worked with those two, yeah. So that was basically our command staff. That's when we approached Manhattan to consider consolidation, and they became our command staff. They've been commanding Peotone ever since.
Bill, you might add, we have an IGA.
Yes, right, yeah, intergovernmental agreement. So we have a contract with them, we pay them yearly for them to provide their administration, and then Kim back there is the secretary of the department. She handles all the other stuff. And these three guys take care of it. And Jackie, I'm sorry, and Jackie.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's okay. I just help out as needed, that's it.
But that agreement will expire in April
April
of next year.
Next year, that expires. And if this doesn't pass, if consolidation doesn't pass, we're kind of gonna be in a limbo thing come April, whether or not Manhattan will extend the IGA. They would be taking on the risk again of kind of carrying the weight. So we would have to go through a whole another contract. So that's to see what happens after this. So after November 8th, we'll know that. Okay, we did, on the 2-year partnership with Manhattan, we did a comprehensive standard cover. So basically, we looked at the whole district in a whole, what we needed for manpower and equipment and administration and personnel and everything else. And between what Manhattan has and what Peotone has, we are set for stations and equipment. We have, between the two of us, we have some of the most updated equipment. We do have an ambulance that's gonna be getting replaced, re-chassis. Other than that, we are good on equipment. We're good on buildings. As you can see, this building is gonna need to be renovated soon. This station now is 94.
Sound the black eye.
Yeah, 30-some years old, yeah, and basically nothing's been done to it. Paint, kitchen need to be replaced, a bunch of other stuff, so there's gonna be some big expense for this to be. And the other thing that's turned around in that 30 years, when we got on, we had no females. Within 10 years, I think we had 2. Now, there's almost as many females as there is males. We don't have the accommodations here for sleeping quarters. We have 1 bunk room back there, and it's got 6 bunks in it, and it's got 1 enclosed bunk for a female. So if we have multiple females here on a shift, somebody's gotta sleep in an open bed. So that's something that needs to be changed also. And along with the agreement here between consolidating all of our services that we needed and all the services Manhattan had, put them all together under one basic services, we saved, between the 2 of us, saved over $600,000 in the first year. So that was a huge savings for us. So all of our insurances and vehicle insurance, property insurance, all of our payroll, our IT stuff, we consolidated all that together and saved a bunch of money. Okay, like I said, the IGA will expire April 30th of 2023, so that, as of that date, Manhattan is no longer legally bound with us. So we have to figure out what we're gonna have to do after that, if the consolidation doesn't pass. Okay, if it does go, let's say, predictability, reliable staffing every day, more solid financial footing between our monies, Manhattan money, we'll be better off there. The time and resource to plan for the future, like I said, right now, our station's gonna need updating. Manhattan is, looking to possibly build a new station. They are, with that study that they did, they take your station placement and then where all your people are at, and they kind of tell you what's the best place to have your station to make your quickest response to those people. So Manhattan, if you guys are familiar with it, they got one right, almost like smack downtown by the ballpark, and then they've got the one out on 52. And then this is it for us here. So we cover all the way up to Beecher, Manteno, Monee, and then to Manhattan and Wilmington's districts. Okay, the status quo, continue with the staffing shortages. We do have mutual aid agreements, which brings in all the surrounding communities, so when something does happen, there is a tone that'll go out with the mutual aid to bring in an ambulance or an engine or a squad or whatever we need, manpower to help cover the station, or if we need them on site. And then of course, the budgetary challenges, to say Peotone is not bringing in any new money. Our budget has pretty much stayed stale 5 years.
Maybe 25, maybe 20,
Longer than that.
ever since I've been on.
Yeah, and we did talk, and say James will explain that too, we talked about that, about a referendum, and because of our tax cap, if we did go for referendum, we'd get maybe 300,000, and that we'd be capped out, that's all we could do. 300,000 might get us a couple guys, by the time you figure in wages and all the bennies and everything to go with it. Okay, myth busters. Staffing shortages were not an issue before Manhattan, like I told you. This has gone back, I left here in 08, and things were not bad, but they weren't great, things were slowing down. The volunteers, the young people like myself, when I came in, weren't coming in anymore. The people that were volunteers or part-timers needed more solid footing. because they were getting families and buying homes and leaving the area. That's a lot of them just left the area. So the personnel crisis has been ongoing discussion. Back in 2017, they talked going to contract, trying to hire full-time, which of course the money wasn't there for that. They say all this is backed up by the trustees' notes and everything. You can find it on our website. Manhattan is here to take over Peotone. No, absolutely not. We as a board went to Manhattan. We've had a long-standing relation with them. We were with Manhattan, Bruce knows, when we got on back in the 70s. Bruce was one of our instructors back then. We used Joliet Junior College and we used Kankakee Community College to do a lot of our training. We did all of our in-house training here, and then all the kids now go through colleges to get their degrees, their firefighter degrees. A lot of them go to the career center through high school. They can get it that way too. But we approached Manhattan. They're not here to take us over. Pensions. Peotone has a very good pension. Last 127% funded, I believe we are. We have three people pulling on our pension. Nobody paying into it because we don't have any full-time people. So we had two of our old chiefs and then one of our deputy chiefs, okay? So they're pulling out of it, but nobody contributed. Manhattan currently has 20 people contributing. They're almost 100% funded. And they have nobody pulling out of it. So they're just the opposite. They got a bunch going in, none coming out. We got none going in, some coming out, very little coming out. So the pensions are only gonna get stronger. Our pension, their pension will go together, will be well over 100% funded. No issue at all. Yes, sir.
Are there 20 guys, are they like ready to retire? Are they
Oh God,
young
they're all
guys?
young guys.
Yeah.
They're all young.
Cause that makes a difference.
Oh, yeah.
The oldest guy we have in Manhattan right now is 42, I think, 41.
That's gotta be Piper.
Yeah, no, firefighter, I should say.
No, that's, they are a bunch of young guys over there too.
So we can continue to grow.
Definitely, oh, definitely, yeah.
And, yeah, James has that. That'll be-
Yeah, he'll have that full financial thing, he can really explain a lot better. Okay, this is, forced the chief out. There was a lot of rumor that, those of you that knew Bill, I was very good friends with Bill. He started here as a cadet, I was his lieutenant. Bill did a fantastic job here. They offered Bill a contract in January of 2020. He accepted the contract. He had a side business working, selling fire equipment. Matter of fact, we have one of his new engines sitting out here. He decided to go that route and he retired from Peotone. So, not sure how the rumors all got started. Peotone likes to talk. A lot of people do, and I've been here all my life. Been here, I know what goes on. I used to call my mom the Peotone Gazette, so. That is so far-fetched, it's not even funny. Okay, the administration needlessly getting rid of commercial apparatus. Another big myth. We did get rid of some apparatus that was no longer needed. It was getting outdated. It was in need of massive repair. And when we did that standard study, it basically did us no good because of all the incoming equipment now on the mutual aids. We have ladders all the way around us. I mean, ladder trucks. Okay, we had an older one. It was costing a lot of money just to have it. About $50,000 a year for maintenance fees, inspections. It made 6 calls, I believe, in 1 year. And never got used. It got taken out there, but it just sat. So it was a big expense to us. So we decided to get rid of it. We had another engine that was becoming of age and had some issues with it, so we did sell that, and we replaced it with a new engine that's out here now. So our equipment is up to date and will be here for a long time. Once our new ambulance is re-chassis, we should be good for 10 years, possibly longer.
Yeah, once it's re-chassis, it'll be good for 10 years,
Yeah.
and then every 5, we'll
Right.
re-chassis or replace.
Does Manhattan have a big ladder truck like we had? Do they have something like that?
What, do you guys have a ladder?
No, we do not. We do not have one.
Do you need one? I mean, do you see a purpose for one or not?
No, usually, so in that standard of cover, they evaluate the risk model. And so usually with the risk model, they look at what size buildings and so forth,
Yeah.
and there's really no need for it. A lot of people make an assumption that in order to get a really good ISO rating, you should have a ladder truck. And we are an ISO 1 in Manhattan, and we don't have a ladder truck. The issue before was, besides it costing all that money, you know, and it's probably north of 50,000 a year, because you have to put all the equipment on it, all the SCBA's and all that stuff. More importantly, trying to cut things out in order to get people. And they can't go out the door with nobody in it. So, basically it's all based off the standard cover and risk model, and can you get people out of the door? And I think now they're probably going to be replaced $1.5 million for a ladder truck.
Easy.
Yeah, it's north of that now, cause I know a new engine's about 900,000. And what the 2 engines we bought sister engines, Manhattan and Peotone bought sister engines together, saved 30 grand by buying 2. Peotone did, and they're identical engines. And this engine out here, I think, was around 650-ish thousand, and now they went up 20%.
Yep, 20%.
And so we bought it at the right time, so. But no, the same model. In Manhattan, we're surrounded by 3 ladder trucks. So, I mean, the town surrounding us, you know, they have.
We've got them in Mantino, Bonnie's got one.
Bonnie's, Beecher.
Beecher.
Wilmington.
Grand Park actually got a grant to get one. They have nobody to operate.
If we needed a ladder truck in Peotone, we couldn't get it out the door with 6 guys. And that's all the more we intend to have in the station.
I thought the day come that we had one was a good deal, because our church, Humana Church, is way up there. If the steeple catches on fire, what are you gonna do? You gonna shoot the hose up there, you know?
Yeah.
Well,
Well, the first truck's gotta go out.
Right.
The mutual aid will be coming in from a distance.
And that's the thing that, right, we have auto aid agreements, so if we get a report of a fire right now, we're getting an auto aid truck from Mantino currently. So they're getting dispatched, you know, with us on an initial alarm for a structure fire. So we're responding with 4 engines, a truck, 2 chiefs, and 2 ambulances to the structure fire. But obviously, the most we're bringing out of here is probably an engine and an ambulance. So.
So we could, like you said, we could have it here. We couldn't get it.
We had more equipment than, we couldn't get it out the door, like Randy said, we didn't have the people to operate it. So what good is it? We have to have it certified, inspected, maintained. All we're doing is, we have to insure it. So all it is a big drain on our budget.
Back when we first got the ladder truck too, that was back when I was on, it was all volunteers. I mean, I lived out on, Route 45 on the south edge here, and I could never get up there to get into a piece of equipment. I had to respond direct with my truck, I just got my gear with me, because, you know, we had so many volunteers that came up and got everything out. And, but, you know, now we're at the point where we don't have it.
Well, when you say 50 grand a year just to maintain it, just to staff it would be more than 50 grand a year. If you had to staff it.
Oh, yeah.
more
You gotta
people,
train them, they
you'd
gotta
be
train them more.
200,000 a year.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, you can see some of the costs that go along with it. I mean, when you buy an apparatus like that, putting equipment on it, the SCBA's $7,500, our Hearst tool, extrication tools, 50 grand. I mean, it starts adding up, so by the time you get the cost of the engine, it's 600, 700,000, you throw in another 100,000 dollars worth of equipment on it. It just, and it sits there, because you don't have the manpower to take it out, it does you no good. And with Chief, if you heard him talk about the ISO, we were a 4.
You're still 4.
Yeah, okay, we're still 4, even though we got rid of that, we didn't drop. So the lower the number, the better you are. So, like say Manhattan's a 1, so they're the best you could be right now with the ISO rating. And that just, the fire service, basically the state recognize you have to pass a bunch of tests and everything. Water relay, pumping, and all that stuff like that.
Can I ask, why is an ISO rating, what does it mean for taxpayers, a lower ISO?
It helps your insurance.
Property.
And your property insurance. So the lower your ISO rating, the better your property insurance. So of course, if you're out in the middle of, say, between Peotone and Grant Park on a farm, and you've got a farm pond, but you have no hydrants, and your ISO rating's 6, I mean, it's not gonna do you any good. But if they got facilities there, and we've got the equipment to get there to pump out of the pond, and we used to use a lot of those. We had ponds out here, his mom and dad used to live out by a place that had a big pond, we pumped right out of there for fires. Matter of fact, the barn right there, failing that the farm there burned down. Well, yeah, unfortunately it did. Okay, people should be staffed, Peotone people. They did. We used to have a lot of Peotone people here, but like I said, the Peotone people moved on. They were youngsters, got into the fire service, wanted to better themselves, get a better paying job, security, benefits, that's a big thing now is benefits, and a pension. When you retire, you wanna have money there. You can't do that on part-time. Currently 6 of our 23 members are, of our 23 part-timers are Peotone people. They still live in Peotone, but they are, I think all but 2 of them are full-time on another department. Is that right?
2 or 3, I think.
Yeah, Jared, there's one, yeah, they're, everybody else, they're full-time, so even though they live in Peotone, I know one works in Manteno, one works in Frankfurt. If they're working there and they get held over, and they're supposed to work here today, we just lost them. So it does no good to be in Peotone anymore. Okay, Chief, you wanna explain this?
Yeah, and Carl, if I'm wrong, just throw something at me. So, this is a little change in addition from the last town hall, which I don't think any of you were at the last one, but Public Act 102-1088. So we were informed recently from legal that this was passed in Illinois, I think back in June or July, and basically what this, in my opinion, I think this is the first step to a forced consolidation. There's been rumors for many, many years that they're gonna force consolidation for special districts, fire districts, libraries, schools and all that stuff. And then they said they were gonna leave schools alone, and then they saw House bills come out trying to consolidate and reduce them by 25%. So this, in my opinion, like I said, this is the first step to that. And really what it does is it requires every fire district, among others, but fire district in the state of Illinois to create what I would call a consolidation committee to evaluate efficiencies, using standard of covers, using any consultants or outside studies to basically look at how can we benefit each other by sharing services through IGAs or anything and save some taxpayer money. That's really what this act does. It's kind of in a nutshell. Now, the one thing is that, and we talked about it at our meeting, is the nice thing, in my opinion, is it's gonna require all of the board members to be on this committee, the chief officers, as well as 2 people from the community. And I think that's very important because obviously at the end of the day, you guys are the stakeholders and you guys pay for everything, the taxpayers do. So to have your involvement in there, I think is crucial. And we'll put that out there, in essence, probably some sort of, I don't wanna say application, but a letter of intent. If you're interested to be on that committee, I think it's pretty important because you'll be involved in the decision making. Once we're done and we meet 3 times, we have to meet at least once within the year, 3 times within a year. And then we have to provide a written report to the county on basically what our findings are. So, can I be a lawyer?
Oh. Yes, you can. Anybody can be a lawyer.
All right.
You know, look around, there's only 70-some thousand in the state of Illinois, so clearly a lot of people can be lawyers that probably should not be lawyers. This study, just so you know, the state of Illinois has more units of local government than any other state by far. It is the state to be a local government lawyer in, okay? And you're gonna have efficiency committees. One of the things most of these committees will come up with is it would be more efficient if we didn't have these committees. But they really do want the local governments to seriously look at consolidation. Regionalization, schools, they've been trying it since I was in high school. And the number of school districts in this state is ridiculous. But we have 750 approximately fire protection districts in this state. Think of all those units of government.
So.
Do we need them all?
So, let's say that Peotone consolidates with Manhattan.
Yep.
Does yet another study have to be done to see if that has to consolidate with some others?
The consolidated district would do the committee
Okay.
to look at it and what are the
In theory,
efficiencies.
if you kept going forever, you could end up with one fire district in one state.
Yeah, not likely.
I think that's the goal of some places.
You know,
I've heard
some-
rumblings of a Will County Fire Department.
Yeah, some states have it by county.
LA County.
Yep. It's, again, Illinois is late to the party. I mean, it's everywhere, and consolidation is not abnormal. I mean, it's really not. I mean, you look at other states, it's what they do, they consolidate.
That's what they do with 911 centers, right?
Yeah, so back in 2015-ish, the state came out and said that by June, whatever the date was of 17, they said, Will County, you have 6 PSAPs, which is a dispatch center. You have to reduce that by 50%. The state said, by this date, you had to do it, and there was really no guidance. It was just, you have to do it, figure it out. And of course, they control the money. So how does that go? Well, at the end of the day, we consolidated 4 dispatch centers into one, and then the Joliet and then Westcom. So that now there's 3 in the county. So it's one of those quote unquote unfunded mandates. And now they did it with pensions. They're consolidating the pensions as well. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, so now we'll bring James Howard up to talk to the financial presentation.
Read that.
There are copies available of that if you guys wanna.
Does everyone have a copy of the financials?
Yeah, they're up here if you need one.
Does anyone need a copy of the financials? Do you need a copy? Do you guys need a copy? Yeah, I got it. Oh, thanks, Dave. You got it? Okay.
Anyone else?
Just to introduce myself again, I'm James, I'm a CPA for the district. Our firm's niche is local governments, and my niche in particular is fire protection. So we work for over 30 fire protection districts. Kind of our footprints as far north as Lake County, and as far south as here.
You must be against the consolidation law, man.
We've all heard business, that's true. But yeah, tonight we kind of wanted to show you the homework. You know, what goes into this is a lot of detailed reporting in terms of the numbers and a forecast of how we're gonna look if we consolidate. And again, that's up to the voters. But I think first, we always wanna kind of get an idea of the taxes. Really, we run on 2 revenue streams. It's property taxes and ambulance fees. And again, property taxes probably make up more than 70% of our district's revenue. So that's really what supports us. We're under the tax cap. So again, typically we get the lesser of 5% or the CPI. Now the CPI historically runs around 2%. But as you know, right now, inflation is very high. The Fed now has a mandate to drive it back down to 2, so they raise rates, trying to drive that CPI down, which hasn't really happened yet. It's still 8.2, I think, was the last reading. So in terms of everybody's top revenue stream, we really don't get a whole lot of new money as it is, based on that 2%. So what we need to do is obviously make wise use of that money that we have. And to do that, we have to forecast. We first kind of wanted to show you, obviously right now we have 2 separate entities, Peotone and Manhattan. Both of them are gonna levy a tax for 2022. These levies are in the presentation, and what happens there? We have an ask or a levy request. Those are the numbers in yellow across all of our funds. One of those funds that falls in under the cap is the pension fund. So if the pension fund comes and says, I need $200,000 more to support the pensioners, we have to somehow split that between what we have for operations for the district and what we give the pension fund, all within that tax cap, all within that 2%, let's say. The way this works, and again, there's no test on this, but basically this mirrors the county model. So what they do is they say, okay, thank you for your levy request. We're gonna go ahead and put this to basically the lesser of 5% of the CPI plus any new growth. Now what separates Peotone and Manhattan, as we said, is new growth. There's not a lot of new growth. Right now you've got about 1.5 million for the county in new growth for 2022. Manhattan has had like 5 consecutive years of 10 million plus in new growth. And what does that do? We want to spread the taxes amongst a bigger tax base. For a simple example, if you had 4 homes and we asked for $1, everybody pays their 25 cents. You had that 5th home, now everybody's paying 20 cents. That's the goal. Here you can see it in terms of an estimate for Peotone's tax rate. Right now we're a little bit over 1 in terms of the overall rate. That gets them about $100,000 in new money for this current year. Again, you saw the prices on just maintenance of vehicles alone. Salaries don't go down, typically. We're in this unique, basically manpower shortage across all industries. Everybody's feeling it, but what happens? Compensation goes up because you want to attract people to your business, and this is how we try to run as a business. So you can kind of see about 1.9 million for Peotone is the estimate, and then when we look at Manhattan, what do we see? Bigger tax base, they have a lower tax rate. 0.9965 is the estimate for 2022 at about 4.4 million. So again, double for Peotone is. That gives us leverage, and it also gives us operational funding every year at a much higher new money rate that we can then spread across a bigger tax base that continues to grow, trying to keep those rates down. I know we talked a little bit about pensions. We wanted to make sure that the public understood that we have actuaries for both pension funds, and this is what they come up with in terms of a hypothetical combined pension fund. At a 6.25% earned rate of return, I know that looks like error, that's what I thought at first. You can see the funding percentage here, 103.86%. You are fully funded as a consolidated district. That is really phenomenal. Some of that really is gonna be the best in the state without a doubt. Now you do have a young demo, which means what do we have to do as a district? Continue those contributions as the actuaries determine them every year. We wanna have private actuaries do that, we can, as Chief said. All the investments now have been consolidated, that should help push returns higher. And then obviously the market is the market. So that's the issue there. But again, as a combined, we talked about Manhattan at about 91%, 128% for Peotone, and then again 104% as a combined unit. Again, best in state. We've got big ticket items. We've got big capital items. We know we're gonna have to replace down the road, but what both districts have been able to do is keep these a pretty relatively new useful life on these vehicles. You can see the current life here in white, the useful life of the vehicle in purple, so that's how long we typically hold on to it before we put it in a reserve status. But again, you're seeing 2020s, 2022, two of the engines that were purchased. In addition to what the Peotone engine would do, our fleet is really in good shape as a combined unit. And again, that's gonna help us down the road, because as these are newer vehicles, we can continue to put money away, just like you do at home for big ticket items. We have a capital fund, that's what we're gonna continue to do through our budget process, is put that money away based on replacement, so we can see the replacement costs. These have gone up dramatically in the last year or two. 400,000 now for ambulances, you can't get them within 18 months, there's no chassis. And then 750 to 950 depending on the engine. Again, all of this money we have to continue to save as we move forward. We can do that as a combined unit. This one's gonna be very difficult to read. But this is the kind of homework that we've done. This is all the vehicles that you just saw up to the left. And what do? We basically put them into a depreciation schedule and say, what do we need to sock away every year to make sure that we can either purchase or do a short-term financing on some of the bigger items, and continue to have a net reserve or a fund balance, we call it in local government accounting, of about 2.6 million at the end of 2037. That's sustainable. You know, we want to make sure that we stay in the black, and then we can continue to afford those payments as they come due. Basically, we'd be paying cash for ambulances and financing engines. That typically over a 5-year period. Typically, we want a financing arrangement shorter than the life of the vehicle. We want that paid off, so we're not having, you know, loan payments on a vehicle that we no longer have. We always try to plan that way. And we're gonna take that piece and roll it into a more broad, not only capital, but operational set of consolidated financials. This right now has 24 full-time firefighters, 8 firefighters per day, 2 at Peotone, 6 at Manhattan. And Chief, I don't know if you want to talk about that staffing model and why that's so important.
Yeah, so right now we have, excuse me, right now we have 6 part-time employees here. I think you guys are aware of that. We have part-time employees, which means I don't want to say own them, but really we can't force them to work. Manhattan's right now has 5 full-time guys a day supplemented with part-time. So if we were able to, if the consolidation goes through, we're gonna be able to hire 6 to 9 guys, and we're gonna be able to make sure that there's full-time firefighter paramedics in this fire station, a minimum of 2. So that way, now we are guaranteed 2 people at all times, and then we're gonna supplement with part-time. So if we have 2 full-timers here, we're gonna have 4 part-timers in this station. And now, a little caveat to that is if the consolidation happens, Manhattan's part-time pool of about 15 to 20 people and Peotone's 23, that now combines. So now we have a larger pool of part-time personnel to fill what would be 6 part-time positions a day. So call it 40 people to fill 6 positions a day, part-time wise. Obviously our chances are gonna be much higher that we're gonna fill those positions, but we are guaranteeing that there's minimum of 2 full-time people in this station, which guarantees you that an ambulance will get out and guarantees you that an engine will get out. So.
Make sure everybody is aware of our work schedule.
Yeah, so we do work 24/48, so full-time and part-time firemen, they work 24/48. So they're here for one day, and then they're off for 2, and then they work again. That's really how the schedule works. It's not Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, like the Chiefs, you know, but that's how that works. Now here in Peotone, and even Manhattan, the part-timers usually work 24 hours, but sometimes they only work 12. And actually, for example, today we had 5 people during the day, and then the 6th came in at 7 o'clock tonight. So, you know, they can either work 12 or 24. Does that make sense? Okay.
So how do we start to build this out? So basically what we've done is we work for both Peotone and Manhattan. So we start with the chart of accounts, we build that out identical, and now we're able through the budget process, and again, this 2023 budget column in green-ish, gets consolidated or put together. And we kind of see from there, as we use very conservative estimates on the revenue side. So again, you can see property taxes here at about 6.3 million. Again, that would be combined. Again, that wouldn't happen until 2023, so that first levy of a combined district would be in 2023, just so everybody understands that. Second biggest revenue stream here is your ambulance fees, about $780,000. Again, we've got some unique things going on in terms of we talked about a possible new station. So we do have some sales surplus there for our current building, that's on the Manhattan side. But again, everything here consolidated. Again, personnel expenses, that's gonna be our biggest expense account, about $4.1 million. The goal with all of this is really the bottom line. And what we wanna show is we're gonna have some years where we're gonna spend down some of the reserves that we have. Why is that? Because we're gonna be buying ambulances. We're gonna be financing engines. But over the course of this period, out to 2034, we wanna show this very bottom line here as a sustainable amount, which is better than 40% of your fund balance to expenditure. That's the ratio we target. That means we've gotta have enough money for operations, because we only get paid twice a year from property taxes, in June and September. Those are the major installments when we get the bills. And then for capital, like we saw on that previous schedule, which is pretty intense. There's a lot of capital. But again, if we can show, we're starting at about 5.1 million, a 71% fund balance ratio. We're ending here at about 4.5 million with a 51% fund balance ratio. If I can show that, and what you're seeing are surpluses in these last 2 years as some of that debt service falls off, I know that I've got a sustainable fire district. And that's really what I look at, after we put all this together. And again, really conservative estimates on the forecast. We don't say, oh, we're gonna see another high inflationary period. We say, you know what, let's tailor it to 2%. That's the Fed mandate. We know historically, if you look back at the last 10 years, it's been under that, about 1.88%. But since Manhattan has all that new growth, it will most likely continue. We can take it up slightly to 2%. 2% on the operating expenditures, and then we plug in all that replacement that you saw on that previous schedule with the yellow boxes. Our debt service, obviously, we want to continue that. That's going to be all those short-term leases that we'll have. And again, as we put this all together, you're going to see sometimes we add to the bottom line, sometimes we take from it, but over the course of this 10 to 12-year period, we want to make sure that we're sustainable in terms of fund balance, 4.5 million and 51%. And again, higher than 40 is the goal. This also includes, the pension fund. So all of those pension contributions, you're going to see here, 453. We're taking that up to 610,000. Again, continuing to stay with those actuarial assets, those progress. And again, there are different percentage increases for all of these. Some are going to go down, obviously, as we're consolidated, and some will go up. This is another just graphical representation of that bigger slide with all the numbers on it. And again, this is really revenue over operating. And why is that important? You can't get upside down in terms of your operations costing more than what you're bringing in. If that happens, that's trouble. And the other thing too, on that fund balance ratio, if you get to 25% or below, you'll start to have cash concerns because you only get paid twice a year with tax money. So this, obviously, you see that growing margin between revenue and operating expenditure, and then the rest is obviously that capital. But this is I think the last slide tonight. I know that was a lot of math and numbers, but this is what we want to look at too. This is the fund balance ratio, and again, staying above that 40%. That's really best practice. If you go to GFOA, some of these other institutions that look at local governments on a much broader scale, more municipal than local government, they're going to tell you, you have to be, we want to be at least 25% or better. But with fire, because of the intense capital schedules that you saw, we need to be a little bit higher than that, because we're going to need that money not only for operations, but for those capital spends. That concludes my portion tonight. I'd be happy to take any questions you might have tonight, or any questions you might have that you think of later on. All the districts, they have you can email me if that's easier. But I'd be happy to answer any questions.
And if you have any general questions for the trustees or for the command staff here as well, you can, now's your chance, so.
Yeah, I got a couple things.
Sure.
We're Dave and Debbie Smith. We've been in this district for 46 years, almost 47 now. And we have to use paramedics probably 6 times in the 46 years we've been here. And I thank you very much. You've been attentive. You've been right there. I have no complaints at all about any of this district. It says Peotone Fire Department right there. Now, my question is, on the ballot here, you have, this is a recent paper, shall the Peotone Fire Protection District dissolve? Now, that word I don't like. I like it to be,
Our lawyer can explain.
put that as a part of Manhattan Fire District, not dissolve. There's people out there who are gonna be the voters, who say, well, Peotone's gonna be gone.
Right.
What are we gonna do now? You know, that wasn't good.
Time out, Peotone's not going anywhere.
Yeah,
I know.
he'll
Okay,
explain
people-
to you why.
What's that?
The lawyer can explain why.
Yeah,
it
you
is
can
to say
explain
that.
why it says that, and
The
we've
next-
all,
The next three
we
words
don't like
are,
it either.
and be consolidated.
Yeah, I see.
And so, it's not like you're eliminating the fire service, you're merging, you're consolidating. Unfortunately, I'll be nice, the mental midgets in Springfield, this is the language they came up with. And we can't deviate from the statutory language when it comes to referenda. And if we were to put a different language in here because we think it will work better, that'll be subject to a challenge after the election. So if we make it sound better than what the General Assembly will allow us to do, they'll have election challenges. And so unfortunately, that's what we're stuck with, sir.
Somebody out in the end of the district is gonna see that and say, well, there's no more Peotone, now what are we gonna do? Who are we gonna get to now? Who are we gonna ask to get a fire put out? You know, they're gonna think that.
We're not going anywhere.
We're sending, everyone in the district will receive actually a mail in the next couple of days to that very issue, because it's our concern as well. The word dissolve, you know, we're legally bound to it, but it's what we're trying to do with this event and with the information we're sending out is really explain what that means. So thanks for pointing that out. You got other questions?
Yeah, the railroad tracks here has been an issue for a long, long time. There was talk of one time putting another department and building on the other side of the tracks and man that also. Is there any more talk of that could happen?
We were very much ready to do that. We bought the property. We went from 1 year to have just short of 500,000 to build a station to the next year that we couldn't sustain the labor costs that we have and keep going. The chance of being able to man a second station was gone. The chance of being able to afford a second station was gone. We're no good with 2 stations if you don't have a man to put in. So the first thing we need is manpower. And that's when the difference is the 40% about for benefits. We can afford to pay the guys wage for a fireman. We can afford 6 firemen. We can't afford 6 firemen with 40% more of their cost for benefits.
So it's not gonna happen.
We don't have enough, no, we don't have enough, well, if we consolidate, we.
The other thing that, I'd like to talk about is our standard of cover. So the standard of cover, what that does is, like the chief talked about, it evaluates all of our risks within the whole district. Whether it's ambulance calls, fires, accidents, those kinds of things. We look at all of that risk and then where are all those calls at, right? So we plug all those calls into a map of where they've been historically for the last 3 to 5 years. Our goal is to try to be at 90% of those calls within 4 to 6 minutes. When we look at that, we have to strategically place those stations around the district so that we can get to those places. As we build new stations or have money to be able to do that, we need to put those in good positions to where we can get to those calls. Where we had the land and that stuff in there after doing the standard of cover, that station over by Pearl Dodge was not in a good spot. It was not gonna help us increase our response areas to get into those timeframes. And what we saw, unfortunately, the growth that is going east of the tracks has really been stifled. Whether you're for the airport or not for the airport, we don't have a lot of growth going on the east side of the tracks. All of our growth right now is gonna continue to go west on the other side of 57. And we did that by using some of James's projections, our standard cover. We used Will County GIS to map that out of where all those locations and stations need to go. And then also looked at the Will County Planning Division. What are they planning for? What do they see coming to our area as far as growth goes? Manhattan is growing all the way east to us, meeting up with New Lights and coming this way. Now with water and sewer on the other side, the projection is that our growth will go west. So putting a station in the other side of the tracks in those areas was not gonna be beneficial to a majority of our customers where a majority of our calls were. Along with not being able to staff. So we had to make some choices of where that's going to be. We have a map of where, if all of our stations, we have a 20-year plan for both districts of where they have to go. I will probably be retired before that happens, but they are all kind of planned out where they need to be so that in the event that growth happens and all of that stuff starts to come this way, we're set up strategically to provide emergency services to our entire fire district from, you know, the west side of Manhattan to the east side of Peotone's district and everywhere in between. And it's all based on time and manpower.
And that standard of cover is on our website. So if you wanna go to peotonefire.org, there is, under the consolidation.
No, it's underneath, our annual report, and it's a 290-something page document, and it'll show you the hot spots of exactly what Chief Piper's talking about, where our call volumes are at, where certain things should be located. I would highly recommend reading it. It's really good piece of information.
I think the other thing that we need to talk about is that between the Board of Trustees, legal, financial, the standard cover, and what we're trying to do is how do we provide the best possible service to you guys while still being fiscally responsible. And the only way to do that is use all of these data points that we currently have to put that together into a master plan to start to do that. When we started out, I put in 26 years here in Peotone. I was one of those young kids that came on. I ended up getting trained up and I got hired full time in another department. And then I ended up retiring from there. We didn't have all of this data to make good decisions way back when. We had kind of thoughts and kind of did the best that we could. Now, and thanks to the board, they kind of put that, you know, on the forefront, is to take all this data, compare us to national standards, what are the best practices, what are the gold standard things that we need to do as a fire district to provide you guys the best possible emergency service.
David?
Yes, sir.
When we did that study, how far back, do you remember, how far back did we go?
We did 3 years of data, because it's still current enough to where it kind of trends it, but it goes back far enough. We didn't go back 5 years. It was just because a lot of it beyond 5 years was all paper and pencil, and be able to do that. It was really hard to collect all of that data prior to that. So that's kind of the standard that we use. The standard cover is part of the first part of the accreditation model. And what that does is ISO looks at just your fire stuff, right? It looks at your water system, it looks at your fire department, and what was the other thing? Dispatch. That's all it looks at. If we look at what we do, a majority of what we do in Peotone based on our risk models is accidents and ambulance calls. We do a ton of accidents and we do a ton of ambulance calls. So we change our equipment to meet that risk model to be able to do that. And we're trying to look at our entire department all the way from financials and getting James involved to be able to do that. We look at EMS, public education, how do we get into the schools to do that? All of our specialty teams, water rescue, hazardous materials, technical rescue, all of those things, and our EMS, right? That's a lot of what we do now EMS-wise. How do we evaluate our organization collectively, not just looking at a small percentage of our fire service? Our fire service, yes, we are a fire service, but we are really a service organization that occasionally fights fires. because we do all the other stuff that comes in there. So we have to evaluate all of those things, and how do we take our budgets, that's their job, to provide all that service to you guys. And that's what we're trying to do, to continue to do with this merger, is put all of that stuff together to be fiscally responsible, but yet provide the best possible service to all of you guys. Make sense?
Dave, did you have one?
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, we're so close to 57 here. I live a block and a half away from Gratiot. They're constantly going up to 57. 100% of the calls out there, I hear it every day. Okay, whose responsibility is that link from 57 from Moni to Mantino? That Mantino can't come and do some putting out fires, cars that turn over, paramedics that need, people that need to go to hospital. Is it responsibility here?
So right now, Peotone, Mantino owns from Mantino up to county line, which is about 325. Right, so we're from 325 to 331, basically just south of the rest areas, right? Give you an idea. And then Moni takes it from there all the way up to just north, and then University Park picks it up from there. So everybody has a little bit of their own section of it, but we have mutual aid agreements. So because when we get the calls for there, nobody always knows where exactly they're at. So in most of those situations, we have what we call a dual response. So we go, if it's south of Peotone, Wilmington, and Mantino comes up from the other side. So we kind of meet in the middle. Whoever gets there first, they start to handle that emergency, and then we assist each other. If it's north, we end up with Moni. If Moni or Mantino gets the call first, then they call us and we do the same thing. There's not much in the fire service that we do by ourselves, right? It takes, just to give you kind of an idea as a national standard, it takes about, if your house is on fire and you have about a 2,000 square foot house, right? It's gonna take at least 17 people to put that house up. I can't get 17 people here from my organization. And none of the organizations around us can provide that manpower either. So the only way that we can do that is these mutual aid agreements and these co-ops to where we all come together. So when the chief talks about that we have 4 engines that are coming here, we have Beecher, Moni, Manhattan, and Peotone are all coming with engines if you call that you have a house fire out, right? Whoever gets there first, we all train together, we all do that. Whoever gets there first, they start that process. Mantino brings a truck. We have an ambulance from Peotone. And then if it continues to grow or we need more help, then we go out another ring. We call another group of people that start coming in. Because while we're all out on the fire, there's still accidents on the interstate, right? To do that. Well, who handles that call? Well, in part of that is then Crete or Crete Township or Stager or any of those departments are gonna come down here. They're gonna be in our firehouse to provide that care or that response to anybody else that would have that emergency. And just the other day, we had 3 back-to-back calls. We had Beecher, Mantino, Manhattan, and us all on calls within Peotone. And to kind of answer your questions, where a majority of our calls, if you look at our calls, our hotspot is in town, where a majority of our people are. There's a hotspot out on I-57, and there's a hotspot out on 45, right? Those main roadways, those are kind of where our hotspots are. And you can kind of see that on our standard of cover. And that's what we used when we started to talk about the land. It doesn't get us there any closer. It doesn't cover any more of that district if I put another station there, right? If I'm really gonna do that, once I'm gonna put a station, that station's gotta go somewhere west, probably center and bar-ish, somewhere in there. But it's great, I can put a building there. But if there's no people in that building, and that's one thing that the chief kind of preaches for us the whole time is, it's firefighters, fire apparatus, and then fire stations. That's kind of when he talks to James or he talks to us as far as what his goals are, our people are our #1 asset. Nothing else matters if we don't have any people in the station. You can have the best whiz-bang stuff, equipment that you want, but if it's just sitting in the firehouse, it doesn't do us a lot of good. So that's kind of the chief's model when we start to put this all together. That's why we're doing this.
I don't know if most people understand that our fire district is 74 square miles. That's a lot of space.
This is Pearson District.
And
Peotone.
That's
and I-57 is in there, so 57 from, like Dave said, that chunk of 57 is Peotone's responsibility.
That's in our district.
And we will always respond from this firehouse to
Yes.
that area.
Well, you're only 5 minutes away, where Manhattan, you are only 20 minutes away. There's a big difference.
Yeah, they're
And
about,
that's-
they're about 10 from Station 2.
Yeah, and that, I know that,
From
Yeah.
52, yes.
Yeah.
that rumor has been out there that, you know, if this goes through, we're gonna have to wait for Manhattan to respond, and that's not factual at all.
Actually, Manhattan the station in Wilton Center is closer to the western boundary of our district than this station is.
It is, but go ahead, you had a question?
Well, that was one of the things that, how do we fight that prejudice that Manhattan, why are we joining up with Manhattan because they're so far away? And it's really not when you look at the grand scheme, and that you're planning to have Manhattan people here.
Yeah, this station will
Yeah.
always be manned with personnel.
Okay, I mean,
So-
that was, the main reason that I came tonight, cause I was looking for words to explain to people why I am totally for this. You know, the cost saving and the response time and all that, but, to try and explain to people that it isn't that some guy's gonna have to get out of bed in Manhattan and drive over here.
No, it is not.
So-
And yeah, this station will look the same, obviously we'll remodel it. The sign's gonna say Peotone Fire Station, it's gonna maintain that Peotone community. The side of the brand new engine says Peotone on it. It's gonna say Peotone Fire Station 83.
Okay, cause I think that's.
You know, and now that we're joining labor pools, and now, yeah, even though they're Manhattan Fire District employees, they're in this fire station. So it's again, it's a consolidated district, we're one fire district, and using that standard of cover, we are gonna put people in the hotspots. And talking about those hotspots, this station and Manhattan Station 1 are the hotspots. Our Station 2 in Manhattan runs less than a half a call per day. You know, so the reality is it's really in a good location because it's right in the middle. If you look at the giant boot, in essence, if the districts were to combine, it's a giant L almost. And that Station 2 is almost in the middle, and Trustee Warren is absolutely right. Our Station 2 in Wilton Center, right off the Cedar, or 52, whatever you wanna call it, not, except now with the bridge being on, or the culvert again, but, usually can get to 45, maybe 104th, about the same time, if not faster than this station right here. So, yeah, I mean, again, it's all about the hotspots, but this station will stay open. It's gonna have people in it, and it's gonna be guaranteed people in it.
See, I just feel like we need to do a little better marketing to get that idea across to people.
And that's why we're here. And, you know, and that's why we're here, and,
Those flyers.
you know, the flyers and all that, and that, again, making you all aware of the facts, you know, so when you get, you know, questions out in the public, you have the information to provide them. I mean, that is the fact, that there will be people in this fire station. The station is not closing.
Anybody else?
So if this supposedly doesn't pass, what do you see from 0 to 5 years from now changing?
Very hard to predict.
We don't know.
It's very hard to predict. That's something we'd have to sit down and talk about.
There will be no staffing guarantees.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. Right now, and the trustees alluded to it, right now, the Manhattan full-time firefighter paramedics are voluntarily picking up open slots down here to make sure that this community is staffed. Keyword there is voluntarily. We cannot force them to come down here right now because that's not part of the original IGA. So luckily, our firemen there are picking up those positions here to make sure that we have staffing in this station.
We pay for it.
But you guys,
We
do
do
pay
pay
for
for
it.
You guys are paying for it.
We, in full transparency, you guys, the taxpayers are paying for it because they are working here on overtime.
Well, okay,
And-
that's as it should
Should
be.
I?
Right, and Peotone on overtime is the key word, so time and a half. And basically Peotone is reimbursing Manhattan for those wages.
Now, what's the key to getting more trained people? You know, how do we do that?
More trained people?
Get more bodies, yeah, we need,
Well, I mean, we have different avenues. Right now, we have feeder programs in place. We're trying to get the people coming out of paramedic school that are in paramedic school, trying to, in essence, grab them out of medic school to get them trained up. The challenge is, and everyone's talked about it tonight, the challenge is there's very minimal people. There's more people retiring than coming in. We were talking about earlier. You know, in the state, would you say about 200-ish medics?
Yeah,
in the
last year was
state?
about, I think, 250.
Yeah, coming out.
Paramedic licenses went out.
Right, and now we're having more people retire than there are medics.
okay.
And it's a 2-year process to become a paramedic, firefighter paramedic. So, and then because everyone's hiring, now they automatically, right now, they can pretty much just get a job. We were just talking about that. I mean, there's a department to the north that's tested, they're on their 4th test this year. Every time they get 6 to 10 people, and then they hire them all, or, oh no, I was already hired, and then they have to retest. And that's the challenge is I don't have the answer. I mean, we try to make things attractive to try to stay competitive with, you know, area fire districts. You know, in Manhattan, we just raised our starting salaries up $10,000 just to remain competitive. You know, and that's just, it's a challenge everywhere.
I think the thing with the part-time program that we have, Chief talked about our feeder program. We have an agreement with Joliet Junior College, Fire Academy, and Paramedic program. So all their riders come to us to ride to get experience and get the paramedic school. Well, as we kind of get used to them, know those people, do that, we take them on as employees, and that's kind of how we keep our part-time staffing. The challenge is because of all the retirements that we have, we had 2 guys that started with us in May here, and in August, they left because they got hired full-time. They got all their training, they finished their paramedic class, and then they were going to get hired full-time. Which, I can't blame them, that's kind of how I got started. You know, they want to buy a house and raise a family and get married, and they want to be able to start that life to be able to do that. That's kind of that cycle that we're going through. Up to this point, we've been able to cycle them, and we keep them for 3-4 years, and then they get hired because it was such a competitive market to get into the firefighter profession. Well, now because everybody's hiring, they can go wherever they want. So we don't have them, we're getting them in, cycle them, as soon as they get their paramedic license and their fire certification, they're getting hired somewhere.
And that costs money. To train an individual is anywhere from $7,000 to $11,000. Because you have to train them, you have to get them uniforms, background checks, physicals, gear, the 2 weeks of training and orientation, pay the instructors to train them. Call it $10,000 per employee, roughly. And you lose them in 3 months.
See, there's no way you can contract them to take their training and then, you know, commit to a year. Is there any way you can?
We sometimes have pre-hire agreements that, and I don't know whether these 2 departments have them, because my firm represents this group. This is the first time I've been in Peotone in the 30 years that the firm's been in existence. We represent well over 100 fire protection districts, over 400 units of government. And multiple times I've worked with organizations to try to get units of government to be consolidated. We lose a client, it's better business for everybody. So I'm always saying, do it. We can't spend taxpayers' dollars to go out and do a vote yes campaign. here it is give you the information, but those pre-hire agreements are tough to enforce.
Yeah.
People leave, they don't pay. And then we make calls to the department that they went to on behalf of the department they left, saying, hey, your deadbeat that you just hired owes us money. And that department has lost somebody else in the same, you know, and it's just a circle. And do you wanna spend a lot of lawyers' money going after that $7,000?
Yeah.
And so the clients make business decisions and often you just can't get it.
Because the schools do the same thing. I mean, the schools here, get a lot of first-year teachers, and then they find
Yeah.
something better.
And
better.
training departments are expensive to maintain.
Mhm.
It's changed a lot over the years. I don't, Dave, cause I tested with you when we went to Orland, and how many were there that tested, remember?
So when I started in Orland, back in '92, there was 1,500 people that were tested, they hired 12 people.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
When I left and I retired 2 years ago from Orland, we were testing, we had 103 candidates that took them. We were hiring 26 off of that list. They got all the way down into the 80s or 90s in there because people have been hired. Aurora just put out a thing, they're gonna hire 60 people, they're gonna open up 2 new stations, right? So they're gonna be able to take all these guys to be able to go there and work. Everybody is looking for workers and do those things. And part of that is our benefit for our part-time program. It's kind of like a job interview. So a lot of the people that are currently on our eligibility list with Manhattan are already part-timers with our organization. So they already currently work here, so it's an easy transition. I don't have to pay to have another physical. They already have gear, they already have that stuff, and they already know our organization, so it's an easy switchover. We're still mandated by state statute on how we hire people. It's a testing process. I can't just go there and hire people. There's an application, they have to take a test, they have to do interviews, there's preference points, and then they go on a list to be able to do that. So the benefit for us is we have a lot of guys that are currently working here that are on our list. The downside is that they would lose the part-time pool, because now they go to full-time. But right now, between both organizations, we're trying to fill 9 part-time slots a day. So if the merger happens, we reduce that because we fill some of those slots with full-time people. I only have to fill 6 slots a day. And now I have 2 combined pools to be able to do that. The benefit of that is the better our staffing is at all the stations. When we have multiple calls, we have that fire, we need an engine from all those places, we can guarantee that we're all coming in because we're staffed. Right?
Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a question. So it's a merger. Does Manhattan have to vote on this?
No.
Why not?
Chief, you wanna explain that?
That's just the way the statute was written.
Really?
It is whether this district, the residents, electors in this district wish to consolidate with Manhattan. Now, the Manhattan Board of Trustees has to adopt a resolution saying we will accept Peotone in as part of our district. And that would happen right after the election is certified. And it goes back to the court, and the judge will then work on a date for the effective transfer. And that'll be by agreement of the 2 districts working it out to make sure that everything's ready to go.
And there's 2 tracks to consolidation. There's this way.
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna put my lawyer hat on here for a minute. There's this way, which is one dissolves and, in essence combines with another one. And the other track is those 2 districts completely both dissolve and create one new one.
Correct.
But that's a multi-year.
Well, there's actually about 3 different ways to do it in the wonderful book over here. However, this is the easiest way for one district and its residents to set your own course, okay? The other, section 14 or article 14 of the Fire Protection District Act, it's both entities, both voting on whether to combine.
So, yeah.
And it's gotta pass in both.
And the individual that started the petition, cause again, the petition that was circulated to get on the ballot was done by the public. It was not started by the board.
So if this does pass, it takes place when, January 1st?
I don't know, that's.
The judge would set it based upon input from both districts, and while January 1st is a great date, the election won't get certified until about the 29th. The results, it's 21 days after the election is the date by which the results have to be certified. That's not a lot of time before December 31 hits, and you're now into a new district and a combined method. Now, this group is already working pretty closely as one in a lot of ways with the single administration, but you do have two boards. You do have a lot of things that have to take place before it's a smooth transition. So I don't know how long it will be. Usually you're gonna have 90 days, I would think, before you'd be ready to wrap it up.
And we have those transition plans, you know, but the one thing I will say, if this does go through, staffing's our number one thing. You know, obviously we have to make sure that there's somebody here, and so, you know, having conversation with the big unions, the fire unions, and making sure that now, can we force you to work in Peotone, you know, and so forth, to make sure that there's people here, even if it's before that date. We're gonna make sure that there's staffing here immediately. That's our priority.
Anybody else?
If, the merger goes through, will both departments, or both communities have equal representation on the board?
The county board would be the entity that appoints the trustees, because Manhattan is appointed. They've got 5 trustees currently. It's my understanding there's willingness to go to 7 and make sure the county works on representation of both areas onto that board.
Just a quick question, reading the Facebook post and everyone thinks you could just start a full-time department tomorrow like that. They don't pay attention to pension obligations or tax levies or the cap on a tax levy. Just if I'm getting this right, the car has a flat tire. You can put a spare, change it, or drive till all the tires are flat. There doesn't seem to be, and you guys have done a lot of work. There really isn't a positive outcome if this doesn't happen in these lines, correct?
It's pretty well sums it up, yeah.
All right.
It's gonna be very rough, we're gonna have to.
People
You're not
seem to be
gonna-
missing that point, and I just wanna make sure I'm on the right.
As long as we have our agreement with Manhattan that we've had for the last 2 years, you're not gonna see any diminished, responsive services than what you have now. If it doesn't pass and our agreement with Manhattan expires and Manhattan says, we're not gonna renew it, I have no idea what's gonna happen. None of us do. Now we're between a rock and a hard spot.
Can I add on that? It's currently working with the Manhattan full-timers, working in basically a second job here, but that gets old. And we're hearing this in a lot of departments where there's not enough personnel, we can't get positions filled, and the full-time members are having to work a lot of extra shifts. They make a lot of good money on overtime, but when you're working 48 hours on a very regular basis, so you're 48-24 as opposed to 24-48, that gets difficult. And your skills diminish. And the number one call that we have in the fire service is emergency medical service. And you don't want exhausted medics and EMTs coming out and taking care of you.
No.
And so it's not, I don't want you to get this thing that, you know, you're hearing, oh, it's done, Manhattan won't do it. Keep in mind that that's a heck of a toll on their department providing all these fill-in shifts here. And so when the board's like, we don't know what is gonna happen, that's part of it, because we don't know, not only maybe the boards will be willing to do it, but the personnel may not start, they may take less and less of those shifts. And so you're gonna have more and more shifts here with fewer than the number that you want to have here to protect the community.
So
That's the problem.
we get, just to give you an idea, so at 6:30 tonight, we had 2 people call off for tomorrow. So we went from 6 people down to 4. Luckily, we were able to get a hold of, and we have 2 Manhattan guys that as of 7 o'clock tonight are coming here to work tomorrow. So we're back up to full staff. That doesn't always happen, that we can fill those shifts. So when we fluctuate, and it's all based on call-offs, right? We have 23 people that are working 6 24-hour shifts every single day, 365, right? So the number of hours that the guys here are working are enormous, because a handful of them only work 1 or 2 shifts, right? Luckily, they're young, a lot of them don't have other jobs, they're still testing, they're still doing that. But as those guys and girls get full-time jobs, that 23 is gonna continue to fall off, right? I have 2 applications on my desk, that's it, right? And they're not certified yet. So we gotta wait for them to get certified before we can end up hiring them to where we can come in, right? So that kind of continues. So then what happens if they don't come, the IGA expire, or those guys don't come here and work? Now you have 4, or you have 3, or you have 2, right? We'll continue to do everything we can to provide that level of service, but there's no guarantees. I can't force those guys to work, right? It's just kind of the fact of, and again, I think these guys have said it, it's not a Peotone, it's not a Manhattan, it's not an Illinois problem. I'm talking to my fire chief friends from California to New York, they're all experiencing the same things. The last study was that there's gonna be 27,000 firefighter openings every year from now until 2030. So there's no short, hey, we'll get through this, we thought maybe, hey, we'll get through COVID, it'll be better. It's just continues. And Chief Osborne kind of talked about that before. Since 2015, we've hired 150 people. We have 23 left, right? They go have other jobs, they get hired, they have families, they can't do that kind of stuff. Now use the chief's number of $10,000 for every one of those people. It's a lot of money. You gotta come up with something to be sustainable manpower, whatever that is. And I think these guys have done a phenomenal job of looking at contract services, trying to, get into the schools, trying to hire full-time shift commanders to be able to do that. I don't think that this is something that they took lightly. They kind of looked at all these different options to be able to do that, to come up with one that they thought was the best. And I'm a Peotone resident, right? I live here in Peotone. We elected these guys to represent us, and I think they've done an outstanding job to be able to look at all those things, and the amount of work that these guys have done to put that in together. It is phenomenal. I hope it goes through. My family lives here. I raised my kids here. I hope that, they'll have an ambulance and that kind of stuff available. If this doesn't go through, I don't think any of us can guarantee that will happen. It's plain and simple. I mean, they'll do everything in their power to do that, but that's something that we can't guarantee.
Trustee Osborne and myself sat with the firemen, the part-time firemen, the ones we currently have this year, and asked them what they wanted. And they wanted to have more guys that are the same guys every day on their shifts. There's 3 shifts in the fire service. So they rotate. So if you have 2 guys, and so 2 sounded like not too many. it's huge, it's so much more than we got now, because every day it's a different group of part-timers coming, you don't have the same people. These people, if they're the same guys coming every day, will give them an opportunity to move up the ladder, maybe become that deputy chief or whatever, so they buy ownership in the department. That's what we want, more and more of that every time we can get there. And the only way we can do it is to save money in other places, and our growth is not here. We can't get enough growth to sustain the benefits, so we are stuck with a part-time pool if we don't do something. And that's why we went for a merger to do that. We are not broke, we have not even got close to broke, but our board would not allow us to go with a budget that we couldn't sustain. If you can't afford to keep it going, don't get it started. And we went with that, and I think that's the right way to do it. So this is where we ended up.
Dave and Debbie, I know you guys are longtime Peotone, Dean, been around Peotone for a long time. The old days of knowing the firefighters and paramedics when they come to your house, it's gone. You just have to face it, that's gone.
I know we had, my husband, we had called them in January, no, last December. And those guys, I don't know who they was, and we found out one of the guys just lived down the road from us, so I don't know if he is.
We still have a couple that are local here.
He's still here, but you guys was great, you all have been great when we have had you.
And it's gonna stay that way.
I hope so, because you guys, we need you. Peotone need you.
Anybody else?
The only word I don't like is dissolve.
None of us do.
We heard a lot about that right after it came out, and, like our lawyer said, there's nothing we can do about that. The state, that's the way the state put it. We would love to get rid of that, cause a lot of people are, oh, the station's gone, we're dissolving all theater. It's just word, that's all it is. Just forget that word, look at the consolidation.
We objected to that word
right away.
Immediately. I mean, it was like, what are you talking about? But the point is, it's not being dissolved. That's not
Anybody
it.
else? Yes, sir.
We're 13-year residents,
Okay.
never needed you guys for anything, never heard anything bad about you, so keep up the great job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, we appreciate you coming,
Everybody.
Understand.
I wish it would've been
And that's why
more.
we came. Don't
As
believe what you read
far
on
to
the
answer your
internet.
question with, try to be more proactive, that's what all this is for. You're gonna get another flyer in the mail this week. You're gonna get another flyer the following week or just before the voting. So the ones you see up there on the table now, the first one's there, the one that's coming out Thursday, Dave?
Yes,
Be Thursday?
it has the ballot question
Yeah.
right on this mailer, so people can
Yeah.
get used to dissolve as much as they can.
And then we'll have one more coming out. before the vote.
Consolidate, forget that
Is
first
there
one.
any
Look at
way
consolidate.
that we can get this information out better? Is there a community group? Is church the way to go? Because we really, truly care about this community and we want the best for everybody here. It's what we do. So if you have any suggestions, recommendations, we would love to hear it.
I don't really in that department, but I would say the biggest thing is everyone's worried about taxes. Because Peotone, we have good taxes, Manhattan has higher
Well,
taxes,
but-
and that's the biggest fear that everybody has.
If you saw the thing up there,
Right.
Peotone's tax is actually, our fire tax is actually higher.
Right.
Manhattan's is lower.
But that's the misconception that's out there.
Right, so it is gonna come down to Manhattan's level, but, like James said, CPI's up so high and everything, you may not notice any, you're not gonna get a big refund, is what we're saying. You know, but it may sustain, we may not go up, where Peotone, if we stay with what we are.
It would.
So, but it will help.
However, if it doesn't go through, you will see your tax go up
Oh,
very high,
Yeah,
because the options aren't
yeah.
Well,
cheap.
not without a referendum.
Right, because you're capped.
And, you know, if you're not gonna support a lot more dollars to keep Peotone, what's your alternative?
None.
That, you know, what are you gonna tell your friends and neighbors that are, you know, why should we do this? Well, what's your alternative?
Oh, that's, yeah.
You know, are you going to support doubling the taxes to support this fire district? That's probably what it's gonna take.
Good luck with that referendum.
You know, under the tax cap, you wanna know what that says? Can we increase our taxes by 100%? Now, the fire protection district is probably 10% at most of your tax bill. 14%, okay. You're gonna go to 25 or more percent of the total tax bill? Just to do it? You're not gonna be able to sell that.
What do these little towns do? They got 200-300 people with one fire truck in a little building. Where do they get their money from? From the people?
Pancake breakfast.
Pancake, like we used to do when we were volunteers.
And
we used to have the turkey raffle, pancake breakfast.
How do they spend any money to get a $900,000 engine?
Right.
They're not. They're getting 20 and 30-year-old pieces of equipment that other departments are no longer able to use.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
When you were just talking about getting the word out to stuff, I know that Chief, you recently took some signs over to the, balance class that is being taught by one of your.
That's me. Sorry.
Oh,
I teach matter of balance, yes.
And
Yes.
my mother was really impressed by that, but there's several classes that cater to seniors and stuff like that, and they vote.
So I guess I should introduce
And just
myself.
to-
Yeah.
Yeah, just to, you've had a couple of classes, and they
Yes.
have yoga classes and stuff, I mean, just, that's kind of more of a hub. for
Which would be fantastic. So I'm the fire and life safety educator for Manhattan, and I have been so blessed to be able to come into Peotone and do the work that I do. One of the big things for my job is I assess this community and Manhattan's community for the highest risk factors. And one of the big things we've noticed is there's a high level of falls in both districts. So what we're doing is we're trying to create programs that we're able to help our older adults create some balance, maybe change some environment things. Chief Piper and I are actually also doing CPR for all the teachers at the Peotone schools. And how many do we have? Over 300? And our goal here truly is, along with what we do with EMS and fire, is making sure that this community is safe. And if we can prevent any kind of injuries, falls, fires, things like that, that's where my job comes into play. And for this part of it, the education piece of what's the difference between a paramedic and an EMTB? Does anybody here know? The education behind that. What's the difference between ALS and BLS? That's a part of some of the things we're trying to teach the community. So if those are things that the community doesn't understand, like, well, we have an ambulance, how come they're not taking care of my family? Well, if there's not a paramedic and they need certain kind of care, we have to get that information out. If taxes are an issue, people don't understand the taxes, we need to get that information out. So if it's going to the senior groups and talking to them and getting that information out, we'll be there. So if anything that you can think of, please email us. Let us know. Go to the yoga class, go to the coffee shop, go to the churches and drop off information. Just email me, email any of us, because it is very personal. We really want to make sure that this community is safe. Because I get emotional thinking about it, but.
Talking about the churches, we did sit down with them a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, talked with all of them, gave them the literature to pass out to their congregations and stuff. Because we're trying to reach that Green Garden, Wilton Center, Beecher, Peotone area. Last time we didn't do that. We stayed within the village limits and we heard about it. So we tried to get in our outskirted area, because we say we actually go into part of Moniz area, a little square of it. We go into Frankfurt's, we go into Manhattan's, Beecher, we got the line right there. So we tried to stretch it out so everybody knew what was going on. That's why you should be noticing a lot more signs out this time. And we've got them out everywhere. And then, of course, the mailings that we're sending too. Okay, anybody else? Good?
I guess. Well, social media is one of the problems with old people, is a lot of us aren't on it. And that is a very bad thing that's against us right now. Social media has not been good to us because they can say anything they want. It doesn't have to be true.
There's no face behind it.
And that's what we're dealing with. So our goal was to try to get the public, and thank everybody for coming out, because it's important.
How short were you guys in the last vote?
60 votes, 61 votes.
I thought it was down to in the thirties
Oh, yeah,
after everything was done.
32
Yeah, but-
had a change.
Yeah.
And you're saying you didn't do a lot of reach out
We did.
to the edge areas.
Yeah.
So I mean,
A lot of it was our
maybe
fault,
it's a sign
unfortunately.
that maybe you'd be better this time. Okay.
It's a larger election too.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Almost
Yeah.
equal.
Could be good, could be bad.
So maybe you could be our messengers and say, this is all the great things that they're trying to do
One
for our
of the things
community.
is, we honestly believe it was so good and that it was the right thing to do,
It wouldn't be a problem.
that it wasn't gonna be a problem. And it,
Yeah, but I mean, you
totally
have all of
still
the
is.
information and you've been able to digest it and understand it.
right,
And,
not
and then you
everybody
come
else.
to
Nobody
us
else
and
do.
we automatically think, you're gonna
Dissolve.
raise our taxes, we're gonna take on
Shut down the
problems
stations.
that Manhattan has, no
Yeah.
offense. You know, because we see, you know, that they're not fully funded, but we're overfunded.
It was our
But we
fault.
don't understand the backstory of, you know, our volunteer pool has gone down. We're not fully staffed on a regular basis. So those are the things that you know is a problem, but we don't. You know, so I don't know if it's a bullet point issue.
And it's
where,
scary.
and then now you're talking about a boot, and I'm like, oh, well, that would've been great if I could've seen his boot on the thing. Because you talk about hotspots, and I don't know that.
Right.
I mean,
The
I
word
know what I
volunteer is
hear.
obsolete.
Right. And that's why I asked
And that's
too.
great, that's
Yeah.
a good thing, you know?
Yeah.
I'll bet a lot of people, the first time they ever heard of this was when they went to vote.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're
And they
absolutely
saw
right.
it dissolve.
You
You're
know,
absolutely
and
right.
to follow up with that, the fire service, fire chiefs especially, they don't wanna scare the public. Because everyone and you said the same thing, we've never had to use you. And a majority of the population will never have to use us. But when you want us there quick. But the fire service, the fire chiefs, the fire departments and organizations don't wanna scare the public. And I think that's why a lot of this information, this is what we do day in and day out. But to educate the public, and I think that's the key to Jackie's position, but especially about this, but we don't wanna instill fear. And that's the norm, because we wanna be trusted, you know, and so, you know, holding this close and doing the studies and all those things, you know, that's been public for a while. It's just, it was never pushed out publicly, but it's on the website, it's on here, but if you don't know, you don't know. So I would highly suggest you look at that standard of cover. I was looking for one here, I couldn't find one. But you'll see the hot spots, you'll see the calls, you'll see all of that stuff.
Thank you.
There it is.
Oh, there it is. Ta-da.
And that will, thank you. I was,
Excuse me.
Sorry, Chief.
and I'm not gonna read this to you, but feel free to take a look at it. I'll pull this up, but you know,
Take your word for it.
going back, like Chief Piper was talking about, it's our job to make sure that we're doing the best with your money, period. And whether that's selling apparatus that may not be a popular decision, or whether it's putting a station here even though you want it next to your house, but data-driven decisions are key. And that's what this is for, and so I'll find the page and I'll leave it up here, and, here you go. And it'll show you the hot spots, but again, our biggest thing is making sure you guys have the facts, you know, and it's been a rough go around the last few years. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and it's pretty unfortunate, especially coming from people that don't even live in the district.
Or the state.
Or the state. So I wanna thank you for coming, I really do appreciate it. The one thing I do wanna say to the board is, you know, I appreciate their willingness to really lead the charge with the Manhattan Board, because this is coming. In my opinion, this is coming regardless from the state level. At one point or another, we're choosing our marriage. We've worked well together for the last, I don't know.
45.
There you go, 50 years working together. I mean, the guys knew each other, and that's just how it is. And so we're choosing our marriage in this case, and we're both the same size districts, and I think it's a really good fit. But again, I'll leave this up here or pass this around. I'll just leave this heat map up here. But you know, to the board and to all of you, thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for everybody for coming out.
Yeah,
And as a reminder too, we have meetings every month. It's the second Tuesday of the month.
Thursday, second
Thursday, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm on this Tuesday.
Yeah.
So Thursday, you know, and it's a public, 6 o'clock in the evening, so, you know,
And they are held here, so.
yeah, I mean, everybody's welcome to show up and sit through and see what our, you know, our monthly financials are and what we discussed, so.
Okay.
Of a population of 4,000 for Peotone approximately, maybe 6,000 plus, there's only 12 of us here, that doesn't look very good, you know, who wants to hear this, you know, apparently we the only ones that care.
We had about maybe a little bit of a bigger group in the first one.
We did have an obstacle. We found out kind of late that tonight's the high school band concert.
that what's that?
Yeah, so that's why we're recording it, so that way the community can see.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm planning to post on Facebook, my opinions. And I am going to write a letter to the editor of the Vedette. Are there any other things that we can do to help get the word out?
Word of mouth.
Just
Talk to the people.
Call your
Basically,
friends.
when you talk to somebody, just make sure they have the truth.
Yeah.
The stories and the myths, when we talk about it.
Cornerstone Cafe, struck up some conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right, that's the biggest thing. You've got the honest to God truth here right now. We showed you the financials, we've told you what we've done and why we've done it. And again, it's not just us, this is nationwide. Manpower is not extinct, but it's very, very hard to get.
And it doesn't make any difference if it's the fire service, it's the nursing,
Whatever
it's the
job.
garage doors, it's
Education.
anything you gotta do in there. The work pool has become less.
Well, it's all baby boomers, we're all retiring.
They don't wanna work.
And there's, yeah, well,
The kids are coming up, they wanna do this.
That's right.
exactly.
They don't know what physical labor is. That's the biggest problem we'll find.
Our government will pay them not to do it.
Yeah, that too, so.
I'll just add one last thing. If you have any questions, if you have any suggestions, ideas, things that we can do to spread the word or maybe get out there a little bit more, if you'd like, you can have any of our emails at the end.
I'll write my email up
Perfect.
there.
Because that would be very helpful for
And you
us.
can get it on the website too, right? Our
Yeah.
Yep, you can get it on the website.
So again, thank you very much, everybody. We hope this was informative for you.
Thank you.
So spread the word.
Feel free to walk around and see.
Thanks for coming.